Okay, prophecy insights. Two witnesses is the topic we are discussing. This is 35th presentation. Welcome back to the Prophecy Insights series. And today we are taking a detour. We are discussing Little Horn for last 5 to 6 presentations. And since some of you asked for Revelation 18 also, in addition to Revelation 17, and in order to properly explain and explore those two chapters, Revelation 17 and 18, they deal with Mystery Babylon, that woman, that whore, that mother rides on a mega beast. That beast has 7 heads and 10 horns and 10 crowns and has names of blasphemy. So the beast and the woman, they're somehow related to one another in the terms of the woman riding the beast, perhaps pulling the strings. In order to understand Babylon, the spiritual Babylon or the mystery Babylon and Revelation, we have to go back to the Old Testament scriptures. Just like any other topic in Revelation, you have to go to the Old Testament, especially book of Genesis, and build the concepts from scratch. After all, what is this Babylon? Who is this Babylon, or what is this Babylon? How do we recognize Babylon? And what are its patterns? What are its signatures? So in the detour, we would do part one of Babylon. So Babylon part one would be the title of this message. We will have at least 3 to 4 parts before we come to Revelation. So we are taking a detour and going now, leaving the prophecy, leaving the little horn for now and exploring Babylon. So I will start with uh, Tower of Babel, and almost everyone is familiar, uh, know several things about this uh, Babel, and want to draw some analysis and present some interesting features and recognition patterns, uh, and lay a foundation for this concept of Babylon. So Babylon is a concept. It was a city, it was a tower, and it was different things through different ages. But a thread that runs all across the incidents of Babylon, wherever Babylon appears, the signatures are same. That's interesting phenomenon. The signatures wouldn't change. The people may change, the times may change, the manifestations may change, and its purposes, its domain may change from instance to instance, because we have more than one instance in Bible. We have several instances of Babylon, and it sometimes becomes a semi-concept. There is a physical entity, and the concept is underlies within the physical entity. Sometimes there is no physical entity, it's pure concept. And how it translates is given to one's interpretation and what perhaps to one's imagination. So it's very, very open-ended. But today I want to take time to go through the Tower of Babel, and then next Tuesday, God willing, I would start the city-state Babylon. And especially when it comes to Nebuchadnezzar, it acquires lots of complexity. And then when we come to Revelation, it is enormously complex. Just Revelation 17 and 18, we were given 95 characteristics of this Babylon. But as any other topic, it starts with simple and grows in complexity. And in spite of complexity, the fundamental identifying signatures are same. They resonate everywhere. So with this background, let's launch. Uh, into the presentation. I'll skip most of the things because we are super familiar with this. And Revelation 11 is the primary chapter for two witnesses. We are at verse 7. And when they shall have finished their testimony, that is two witnesses, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit, that is Greek abyssos, shall make war against them, that is two witnesses, and shall overcome them and kill them. So this is the verse we are exploring. We went on a we took a detour and went into Little Horn, which does exactly same things. It's the same spiritual signature patterns. And then when we came to Revelation 17 and 18, suddenly we find Babylon doing very similar things to what this beast is doing. So that caught our interest. And now we are going in another detour into Babylon. And then we will come back and try to harmonize all the things we have discussed for this verse 7. We come back to verse 7, perhaps after a few more presentations. So let's launch, and we will go through this is the Babylon, and we went through Daniel chapter 2 and chapter 7, and then went through several of the. By the way, I hope all of you received the document. We are now reaching around closer to 200 features of the Little Horn. Uh, Please keep up your study of Little Horn while we are cruising through Babylon, because both are important. And go through the list on your own and check with the underlying chapters in the Bible from Daniel and from Revelation, and perhaps correct the notes, points, or add your own points. That's a good way to build your knowledge and in-depth understanding of these entities. So I'm just skipping through these things. I have also put version number now. This is version 1. As we add more points, I will increment the version. We can have 1.1, 1.2 like that. And finally, once we are done, I will publish a final document, final version. So we reached okay, 185. So this is the Little Horn, but I think Little Horn has some connection with Babylon, or Babylon has some connection with Little Horn. That's where we are going. And finally, towards the end of the book of Revelation, we see these entities come together. Perhaps they converge. Maybe we are talking about one entity. It was given a different descriptions and different entities by scripture. Perhaps we do not know for sure. So this is the Little Horn. This is the first beast and the second beast in Revelation 13. We have the first beast, 10 heads, 7 heads, 10 horns, and then 10 crowns. And then we have a second beast, which is also called false prophet. This looks like a lamb with 2 horns, but spoke like a dragon. A snake's tongue is put just to indicate this is the artist's uh, imagination. I like this diagram. Looks like lamb and speaks like dragon. So the little horn is split into 2 entities in Revelation 13. But when we came to Revelation 17, the beast remains same, but instead of this guy, this false prophet, we see a woman, a mystery Babylon. So this is the woman, 17 and 18 Revelation. It rides the beast. This beast looks to be same as chapter 13 beast in terms of heads and horns and crowns, and the way it functions, and the blasphemy, all those things are same. And the woman, now the false prophet, it looks like lamb and speaks like dragon. We don't see that in Revelation 17, but we see the woman, mystery Babylon, the mother of harlots. This is doing exactly what the false prophet would do. So this is another way of looking at the scriptures. So God does not directly tell us how the false prophet is the Babylon or Babylon is the false prophet. There is no explicit statement. But as you are studying the patterns, we see certain insights. That's how we learn the scriptures. This is the blessing that God gives us when we persistently, consistently study his word. And he already put the words in first chapter of book of Revelation. Blessed are those who read this book and does the things that are written in this book of Revelation. So God explicitly has put a blessing, and he promised that blessing on you and me when we diligently study Revelation and all the prophecies. So don't get discouraged. Be of good courage. So we'll come to the Babylon. The Babylon starts with Babel. The Babel sounds different from Babylon, isn't it? But it is same. Why? This is the first incidence of a tower and a city and the people doing something. Later on, we find exactly same things with more sophistication and more complexity when we come to the ancient city-state or kingdom of Babylon. It's in the same area the Babylon would later come up as, as a world ruling empire, and it is the same place called Shinar. Shinar is the place, and most scholars would indicate, we would believe that it is the same people that were that stayed there in that place, in that general area. They became as Babylonians, or later on called Chaldeans. So what is Babylon and what we see in the Tower of Babel? I know most of us, almost all of us, are familiar with the subject, but nevertheless, I want to go through the scriptures and see what is happening. So this is the artistic rendition of the Tower of Babel, and this is, I think they call it ziggurat. Uh, so it's a spiral staircase that goes around and around until the top. And this is a structure they found in several Babylonian cities and city-states. It's like a closer to pyramid. At the top, they have some altar. They have a derived name of Baal. They call it Belarus or Belus. So they have different names. So they have an altar. They have an Ark of the Covenant kind of thing. There's an ark. There's a golden showbread. This very copy of God's tabernacle. That's what they found at smaller structures, very similar. So those structures which they erected are kind of echo of what happened in the first uh, enterprise that mankind took upon themselves to build. So the scene goes to the flood, and immediately after the flood, all the people are decimated through the waters of flood, and the whole world was has perished. And now the ark lands and Mount Ararat or Ararat Mountains, and it safely lands on the top of the mountains. And Noah and his family, along with the animals, in whose nostrils is breath, they all come out one by one. And now they have to explore the world, the whole earth is now open to them. And the first batch of human beings come out and they settle in a plain called Shinar. And then they quickly began to multiply. And then it is similar to when you are a child, or perhaps in your teens, you wanted to explore the city. So you would take baby steps, go 2 or 3 streets away from your home and safely come back. And as you grow older and as you get confident, you go to several other neighborhoods, but you would safely make it back to your home. So there is a danger of unknown areas. So perhaps that is the sentiment. They don't want to go to this huge uninhabited land and lose their way, be lost in the unknown lands. So that is the sentiment, perhaps, but scriptures give us more insight why they built the tower. And this is the time when all families of earth are they have a fresh beginning, and now they build a tower. And when they build a tower, they have a mindset, a reason, and a definite motive and goal. And this is the scratch from which the Babylon is built. This is given a classic textbook example. Most people would relate this to confusion of tongues or languages, but that is the that is the aftermath of something more sinister takes place first. And even before the tower is built, even before the foundation is laid, there is a thought process, there is a decision point or points in the hearts and minds of these men. And that's where the Babylon begins. Let's launch. There are several artistic figures, and this is all imagination. So this is another way they're building the tower. And you would see most of the artists would see the tower is built almost to the finish, and then they left. But other researchers find probably it was never built beyond its foundation when God confused their tongues and then they abandoned the project. Nevertheless, why the project? That's an interesting thing. And in English, when you read the sentences in English, sometimes you lose the underlying uh, patterns that God is communicating to us. So we would consult Hebrew and we would do some word analysis, how the word is used. So this is another version of this is a painting somebody painted. It's almost like a pyramid. So somebody thought like it's more like a pyramid. And we later on find this theme is echoed in terms of a gigantic structure. Like we saw pyramids by Egyptians, and we have similar structures in South America and rest of the world. There is something in the man to build something tall and look at its greatness of height and and magnificence of the work of his hands. And we see this even in the modern times, like we have Twin Towers in New York, and we have UAE and Arab world. They build all the tallest towers. They're like ambitious. So there is something in the human psyche that you want to build something tall, something big, something awesome. So that is one reason it was told. And interestingly, Bible not only describes the project and what they want to do, but why they wanted to build. What went on in their hearts and minds? What is the thought process? That's very interesting. That's where we find the Babylon in its infancy. Not many verses, but we will see, we will go to Genesis chapter 11. That's where we see the Tower of Babel. So Babylon here is a shadow. All the Old Testament occurrences of Babylon is a shadow. So we pick up these shadows, and when we come to Revelation, we see the real spiritual entity. So the Revelation 17 and 18, the woman riding the beast, that is the target. That is the spiritual reality. The spiritual reality is explained in terms of shadows, different shadows. This is one of the shadows, the Tower of Babel. And now the people have come out of the ark, and then Noah offers uh, the sacrifices, and he builds, I think, small altar. After all those things, the scene now shifts to Genesis 11, chapter 11 and verse 1. And the whole earth was of one language, of one speech. In Hebrew, it was written one lip and one speak, one lip and one speak. So there is a homogeneity. All people spoke one language and have one mindset, perhaps, because language indicates a thinking pattern. So now, when you learn Greek, you have to learn how Greeks would think. It is the language is tightly bound to the thinking patterns of the people. It's not that it's radically different from other languages, but it has a unique customization. So when God changed the languages, he also changed somewhat a thinking pattern and the patterns of expression. So the conceptualization of things and the expression of your concepts, they're all built into language. When you learn a different language, especially not in the family of your mother tongue, it's a gigantic task. I started learning ancient Greek like some 6 years ago. It's a gigantic task. It's so different from the languages that I have known. So the difficulty is in part how people thought and how people express their ideas, and also their level of technological advancement and their military campaigns. All their advancement of civilization also perhaps uh, are tied up to the language. Or you can argue vice versa. The language also permitted them to think in a particular fashions, particular directions. Like if you take Greek, Greeks are very sophisticated in their poetry, in their art, and in their poems, and also in the military. They have more vocabulary that talks about the military, the strategies, and all those things. So the vocabulary of that language also comes with the thinking patterns and expression of those concepts and the way they live and the things that they accomplish. I think it comes like a package. The language comes as a package. At this point, all of them have one language and one speech. So all of them have very same thinking pattern, and they were all under very easy to communicate with one another. Now they are open to a vast land. The whole earth is at their disposal. And let's see what they thought. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. So the whole people, group masses came and settled in land of Shinar. So they are afraid to go. They don't want to go out and scatter, and they want to settle there. Why plain of land of Shinar? It's a plain, that means it's a very fertile, and you don't need to do lots of hard work to grow crops. So perhaps that's one reason scholars would say, and then they easily plant, because the plain is like your Illinois and Wyoming. uh, the states, northern states, we have plain lands. As you're driving on highway, you can see miles and miles of flat land, but it is fertile. It's clayey and alluvial soils because it was flooded by the rivers sometimes, and they have deposits. So it's very fertile and less labor and plenty of food. And plenty of food results in some bad things, bad thinking patterns. Perhaps all of this is happening because the Noah's flood, perhaps deposited lots of very fertile dirt or soil in the land of Shinar. And Shinar does not have any stones. It's a plain. It's a clay mud soil. That's why they make bricks. They don't have stones. They don't have cementous material that can be produced by the powdered stone, but they have to rely on something else called slime. We will see that. But and they said to one another, let's go, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. So mortar is like a cement, believed to be from rock powder and with some clay mixture. It's a tight binding material for the bricks or stones. Now they don't have stones. They have to find alternative, that is brick. And then they have slime, which is again kind of a clay material, which is also good for binding. So they held bricks and slime for stone and mortar. So here it's this huge symbology is crying out from these verses. The stone and mortar are good things. They're strong things. They're permanent things. They provide you stability. And when you build your house with a stone that can withstand all the tornadoes, all the rain, winds, and all the earthly movements and attacks, it stands still. But if brick is inferior and the slime is inferior, so they're building something inferior. Of course, that's not the reason they thought that let's build an inferior house. That's not what they thought. But the whole pattern is crying out behind the scenes. Many times, the people who are playing this role, this drama, they have no clue what they're serving for. Like the modern Babylonians, modern nations, they go through, they do lots of things which they do not know why they are doing. But a Bible student gets more understanding. We know why they are doing because we understand the scripts, and they run and work according to the script as the script is unfolded. So the God gives his servants more insight than the people themselves who are fulfilling the script. So this is kind of the the place I'm going for. So, and they said, let us go to his, let us build a city and a tower, and who stop may reach, there's no word may reach in the original language. So who stop unto heaven, and let us make us a name. The word for name is Shem in Hebrew. It's the same as Noah's son, Shem. It's a one, uh, the Strong's Concordance has given a different number. They incremented the number, but in all aspects, it's kind of same. The name Shem is synonymous with the Shem, Shem. So whether you put uppercase S, which is a person's name, and lowercase s, it is just a name in Hebrew. And lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. So this is what they want. They wanted to build a city in the land of Shinar, and they build a tower, and as a fairly tall tower, and they want to settle there, and they don't want to scatter them. Perhaps they are afraid that they may be lost in this whole huge unexplored earth. So their young nation, the young uh, human beings, very few in number, but rapidly multiplying, and they have their own earthly reasons why they don't want to be scattered. And this is the crux of the verse. So I would take some time to explore this verse. And it looks innocent. And as Bible scholars tell us, they may be afraid. That's why they don't want to be scattered and lost. But that is not the reason. There's another reason why these people are building the tower. There is more wickedness behind the scenes. So let's explore this verse and then we will finish up the rest of the verses. So, first, what is whose top is reaching unto heaven? Some people, some Bible teachers believe that this tower they want to build so tall that it would reach God's throne. It is very unlikely that they are thinking to reach heaven. They just came out of flood. They were terrified and they know the dangers of being wiped out. That is not the idea. I think I concur with those other camp that they think that they're not actually trying to reach heaven. It is a more metaphoric statement when they say, whose top is unto heaven. So, unto heaven is used in scriptures in few places in a metaphoric sense. Perhaps they are intending tall into the sky. Perhaps they are intending if there is ever a flood, at least we have some safe place. All of us can go into this tower. We don't know what it is. Reach unto heaven. We see few verses that it is a metaphorical statement. And let us make us a name. This is another phrase I want to explore. Now, here the word name is more deeper meaning than it appears in English. The name is authority. The name is authority. So, what they're really saying is let us have a name, our own name, or for ourselves a name. So, we have two authorities. The authority of God also has a name, God's name or God's authority. Now, they don't want God's authority, they want to have another authority of their own. So, let us have a name. Let us make us a name. So, they're creating a name. So, we have similar passages in Bible where a name is made. So, we will see those things and lest we scatter abroad. So they don't want to scatter and cover the whole earth. This is directly in opposition to what God's uh, intended desire to them. He already asked them and commanded them to replenish the whole earth, go abroad and fill out the whole earth, be fruitful and multiply. We see that in earlier chapters, uh, God already made it clear to them that He wants them to spread out and cover the whole earth. This is in direct opposition and violation of the revealed command of God. So the Babylon has that component of rebellion to the revealed commandment of God. So wherever there is a commandment of God, when people respond in opposite rebellion, you see Babylon. Whenever they don't want God's authority, but they institute their own authority, you see Babylon there. And and these are the two important patterns. Let us make a name is most evil and wicked thing that ever happened in the history of mankind. So that is, let us make a name. That means, let us make our own authority. We don't want God's authority. We don't want God telling us what to do. We don't want God in our life. We want to be independent of Him. We have our own name. That is the pattern that is Babylon that shows us and tells us. So here, this is the identifying features. You see it all around you. as you walk step outside of your home, the things that you see all around you is Babylon, because they have a name of their own. They made a name for themselves, not the name of God. And there is a direct rebellion to God's command. So in a way, we can also go to Garden of Eden when Eve rebelled. That's what we see, the first occurrence of Babylon. She made a name for herself by by yielding to Satan and by assistance from Satan. She created a name. She made a name for herself. Her own self is now authority, not what God tells us. So she's moving away from authority of God or name of God. So she made another name. Last Friday, Phil said Eve was first pope. I would say Eve was the first Babylon or first Babylonian woman. She is mother of harlots. She was a chaste virgin or chaste wife of Adam. From there, she fell. She was kind of in a figurative way, like bride of Christ. She pictured New Jerusalem in several ways before her fall. But after her fall, she pictures in several ways this mystery Babylon of 17 and 18. Isn't it interesting? So this is not the first occurrence. The Tower of Babel is the second occurrence of the mystery the Babylon or Babel. So let us see a few things. Reaches unto heaven. So when they were telling that let us build a tower to reach unto heaven, that they're not planning to reach to heavens where God's throne is. Just few verses, Deuteronomy 1, chapter 1, verse 28. Whither shall we go up? Our brethren have discouraged our heart, saying, the people is greater and taller than we, and the cities are great and walled up to heaven. And moreover, we have seen the sons of Anakims there. This is when the spies spied out the promised land and came back, and they're giving their report. And they're saying cities are great and walled up to heaven. Is it really literal that the cities of the all the Amorites they were so tall that they reached to heaven? Forget about God's throne. Did they reach even to the skies, the clouds? No, I don't think. It's a figure of speech. Up to heaven. So most Bible teachers would think that this is not a plan to reach heaven, not even to the clouds, but this is a figure of speech. That it should be a tall tower, perhaps in the plain of Shinar. They want to make it visible for a longer distance, because in a plane you can spot this tower from several miles so that they can come back. They don't want to scatter. So that is the thing. So let's see one more scripture that says unto heaven. Daniel 4, verse 11, here the prophecy, the tree grew and was strong. This is alluding to Nebuchadnezzar. And the height thereof reached unto heaven, and the sight thereof to end of all earth. What does it mean? The tree did not actually reach heaven, not even clouds. They are still far above. So it's a figure of speech. It grew tall and big. That is Nebuchadnezzar. So reaching unto heaven, the way it is used is just tall, very tall. That's all we can conclude. And what about a name? Making a name. They made a name for themselves. Is it making a name? Does that mean, say, just to pick Alan, if he wants to make a name, he should change his name Alan and call himself some other name. But that is not the way it happens. When he makes a name, He's adding something more to his entity, to his description, and to his authority, to his character. It's more than the sound or the spelling or the word that you attach to the person. See how God uses making a name. Isaiah 63, verse 11. Then he remembered the days of old, Moses and his people, saying, where is he that brought them up out of the sea with the shepherd of his flock? Where is he that put his Holy Spirit within him? It's a question. How God delivered them from Egypt out of the Red Sea. Verse 12, that led them by the right hand of Moses with his glorious arm, dividing the waters before them. What God did, all these things, God did that. Why? To what end? To make himself an everlasting name. God is now making a name for himself. He's making an everlasting name for him. Do we see his name as Yahweh or Elohim or Adonai, whatever Hebrew words? They are not getting replaced here. Nor do we see a new name is given. Name is much more than the word that is used to describe the person. Here, an everlasting name. He's adding more to the meaning or the way he is revealing and the way he is relating to the people. Now, when he made his name everlasting name, you behold God in a different way. You see his majesty and his greatness and his goodness to children of Israel by delivering from Pharaoh and his taskmasters. So more meaning is added, more glimpses of that person is added. So that's how everlasting name he made for himself. This is the phrase I want you to notice. Let's see one more verse. Isaiah 63, verse 14. As beast goes down into the valley, the Spirit of the Lord caused him to rest. So did thou lead thy people, again going back to the Red Sea, to make thyself a glorious name. So it's in the same chapter, just few verses down the line. So we have other places where God made a name for himself. Here they're saying they want to make a name for themselves by building the city and building the tower. That's interesting. And the word name is Shem. Now, here they wanted to make a Shem for themselves. This is another layer of understanding when you go into Hebrew language, the original languages. In translations, you lose all these good things, goody things. So the Shem, if you come to Shem, let me put some. So you have Adam, from where you have Abel, second Cain. Cain kills Abel. Done. Now there is no one to continue the lineage of Adam because Cain was disqualified. So we have third son, Seth. When Eve got Seth, she said, God gave me a substitute. In the place of Abel, now I have Seth. And Seth begets children. So the lineage of Adam continues. Now from Seth, several people branch out. He has daughters and sons and so and so. But one lineage is counted as God's lineage or kind of firstborn or kind of the priesthood. So there's a priesthood thing. This is very hidden. So it goes from Adam to Seth, and from because Abel is, as has died. Otherwise, it could have gone to Abel, and now to Seth, and Seth to Enoch. There are several people, and finally it comes to Noah. So this branch, other people that branched out, they are not counted for this priest's office. And from Noah, you have three sons. You have Ham, Japheth, and then you have Shem. Shem is the priest, and he is the godly figure, and his authority. And Shem is faithful to Yahweh, and he was custodian of God's commandments, and he is the one who would make sure that everybody is aware and remind them of God's commandments and perhaps sacrifices, perhaps some kind of rudimentary festival keeping. All these things were given as a responsibility to Shem. And now this guy, Ham, is the most sinister guy. He said, like, it is enough, Shem. We don't want you, including Japheth. They said, we will make our own Shem, our own name. You see this in Hebrew, you don't see this in Greek translation. So let us make a Shem for ourselves. Let us make Shem our own authority, doing away from God's authority. From Shem, you have dotted lines, several people. You see Abraham. So the priesthood continues from Abraham to David, and David to Christ. So where it culminates, this priesthood concept that flows through, it culminates and fully realized in Christ. And rest of the people, Ham, Japheth, everybody, they continue with their own Shem, and that's where we see Babylon, mystery Babylon in Revelation. Isn't it interesting? Hebrew helps us. Let us make a Shem for ourselves. This is the most wicked thing a man can do or man did in the history. And we also see the sovereignty of God in the affairs of man. Whether you reject God's authority, whether you reject Shem, or you stay with Shem, you still see the sovereignty of God. The people who rejected God are still subject to the sovereignty of God, whether they like it or not, whether they understand it or not. The invisible, sovereign hand of God plays out both with Shem and other party which do not want true Shem, but they have created their own Shem. Even there, you see the sovereignty of God guiding them, leading them, perhaps judging them, and perhaps restraining them. We see this very, very, very interesting way how God operates with them. Okay, let's see. What is Shem? What is Shem? To understand this concept of priesthood, we can see Shem is in right standing with God, or God is with Shem. God was not with Ham, not with Japheth. We see this in verses, Genesis 9, one chapter, a couple of chapters from Genesis 11. If you go, Genesis 9, verse 25, he said, cursed be Canaan. So Noah is cursing Canaan. A servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, blessed be the Lord God, Yahweh Elohim of Shem. See the underlined portion. Noah is concluding and perhaps telling us that he is the priest through which God was operating. Now Shem is authority of God because God was with Shem. Now here they're saying, let us make a Shem for our own selves, a different Shem. and Canaan shall be his servant. So God is still working with the rebellious people. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. So Japheth is not cursed by Noah, but still Noah did not attach the Yahweh's name to Japheth, nor to Ham. It's only Shem. And he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Genesis 8, verse 17. Let us make a Shem for ourselves. Bring forth with thee every living thing that is within thee, of all flesh, both of fowl and of cattle, and of every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth, that they may breed abundantly in the earth, and be fruitful, and multiply upon the earth. This is Genesis 8, 3, 4 chapters. This is immediately after flood. God is telling them to multiply, to breed abundantly in earth. This is for birds, this is for animals, and this is for mankind. Breed abundantly and be fruitful and multiply upon the earth. Multiply and spread out, fill the whole earth. That was the revealed command at this time for those people. And they don't want to be scattered. Let's see one more verse. Genesis 9, verse 1. And God blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply. And notice the last clause, replenish the earth, cover, occupy, and subdue the whole earth. That is the command. For this, at this instance, the Tower of Babel, this Babel or Babel, we have different pronunciations. The revealed command was be fruitful and multiply. And they don't want that authority, and they want to rebel against the commandment, and they do opposite, the spirit of rebellion. So we see two important identifying features. Let us make our own authority. We have nothing to do with God or God's servants or God's revealed commandments. Second thing is we do opposite to what God wants us to do. Like Eve, thou shalt not eat that fruit of that tree, and she eats exactly that tree. So there's an opposite action. That's where you see the Babylon replenish the earth. So they're not without excuse. They knew what God's will is, they knew God's commandment is, but yet they don't want to scatter and replenish the earth. True, they are fruitful and multiplying because you see huge number of people, but they don't want to do the whole of the commandment. They can do part of the commandment. That is the Babylon. It's a mixture. Now they're building the tower. They're building the tower and the city with bricks. I already gave a hint. If you build it with a stone that is more permanent and strong, it can withstand several attacks of the weather, of nature. But if you build it on brick, it is weaker. It can collapse. It is made up of clay, sand, and mud. There is no stone. Now, I already mentioned here Christ. Christ is the priest, right from Abel, Seth. This is all shadow. And finally, it reaches Christ, it becomes reality. He is the high priest, the designated high priest for the entire mankind. He is the Shem. He is the Shem for us under new covenant. But people don't want him. They want to have their own Shem. That's where the Babylon stands. Let's see this very interesting verse. Matthew 7, verse 23. Matthew 7, verse 23. And then will I profess unto them, this is Christ speaking, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work anomia, lawlessness or iniquity. So people are practicing lawlessness, that same as Babylon, we will see. Therefore, whosoever hears these sayings of mine What are these sayings of his? Red letters in four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Red letters. Whoever hears or reads and hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him unto a wise man which built his house upon a rock. You have to find that rock, Christ, and build your house. And the rain descended, and the floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell not, for it was founded upon a rock. How about the Tower of Babel? They don't have rock in the land of Shinar. It's a plain. They're using sand. Sand is a metaphor for any clayey thing, anything that is not rock. Let's see verse 26. And everyone that hears these sayings of mine, that means you might know some red letters or know all of them, but does them not, shall be likened unto a foolish man. So Babylon is a foolish man, which built his house upon the sand. And the rain descended, and floods came, and the winds blew and beat upon that house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. So here is the signature words of the Babylon. Whoever do not have this Shem is all Babylon. And whoever have come to Shem, the true Shem, you are the people of God. Let's continue rest of the chapter. Verse 5. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men built. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do. Now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. This is the imagination of the hearts of men that are causing them to build the city and they build the tower, lest we be scattered, lest we be scattered. The imagination is actually, there are lots of hidden meanings behind this. One thing is they want to develop a superpower. Actually, it goes back to Nimrod and children of Ham. They are physically strong people, so they subdued everybody else. Eventually, they want to turn everybody else as slaves to few small minority. You have a concept of elite. Elite would enjoy all the fruit of the labor of the slaves. So they want to build a big empire like thing so that the top few people, the cream elite, would enjoy all the benefits, and while everybody else are reduced to slaves. You lose your individuality, you lose your choice and freedom, you lose your expression, you lose all your rights to worship true God. Everything is taken away. You are reduced to a small being meant to support the elite. Wherever you see this pattern of few people subduing everybody else and using their fruit of their labor, you see the Babylon behind the scenes. That is the real intention of Nimrod and these guys when they're building Babylon, this tower. And God, in his sovereign authority, would intervene and postpone the things. That's what he told via prophet Daniel. Don't you know? The Most High rules over the affairs of men. He rules. And we see the sovereign act of God, this evil of elite versus Goyim, ever coming into fruition that early in the human history, immediately after the flood. He wanted to postpone, so he intervenes. Here, the grace of God and goodness of God also we see in action. We also see the sovereignty of God with postponing things. We see the same pattern in Matthew 24. Olivet prophecy. Unless he intervenes, mankind will kill themselves. No flesh should be saved. He intervenes out of his own sovereign will and sovereign power. He intervenes there. Here also, perhaps they are in brink of uh, all the misery to the people because of this elite goyim concept and the ruthlessness and the uh, dictatorship and subduing people, exploiting them. All these wicked things would result if this is permitted to proceed. So God has cut short. God has cut short out of his sovereign authority several times. He does that to Nebuchadnezzar. He makes him into an animal like being and then restores his mind and his body back to it. See this sovereign authority of God, the way God interferes even the affairs of Babylon and postpones things, sometimes restores some madness, removes some madness and restores some sanity, even in that evil and wicked system. But on the other hand, people who belong to this Shem, true Shem, God continually works. God continually supplies His Spirit, His truth, His refinement, His purity, His holiness. There's a more active involvement of God with us, building and shaping us. But the other people, Babylon, even there, God's sovereign hand seems to be working behind the scenes. This is the beauty and glory of God. Now we know what happens. Verse 7, go, let us go down. God also seems to use same phrase there and confound their language that they may not understand one another's speech. So this is sovereign act of God. Just on the fly, you have to install new software in everybody's brain, heart and mind. A new software has to be installed in such a way the families, the close families, can communicate to each other fully. So the same software perhaps is installed in group of families, but a different family group would receive a different software, and it all happens instantaneously. Boom, there you go. Everybody has a different thinking pattern, different speaking, different language, different grammar. And sometimes there are words that overlap between the languages. Words mean completely different meanings in two different languages. So they are vexed with each other. However, they want to try to speak, they couldn't communicate. So this ungodly unity is postponed. This ungodly unity is postponed by the sovereign will of God. We see this at the end time, Revelation 17 and 18. We see the ungodly unity. It again goes, this languages. God has put so much division. He burnt the division in the humankind or mankind with these different languages. You just can't reconcile. Your mother tongue is so sweet to you. You just long to be people that speak like you. And you cluster together into one group. That's how the whole human psyche is designed. The language is main thrust by bringing people together into nations, into people. That's why we see in Revelation nations, peoples, kindred, and tongues, the speech based on language, they are grouped even in the end times. So what God did here has lasted even into the 17th and 18th chapter of Revelation. Only after that, once God comes and brings one new language to all people, then this is undone. Until such time, this division continues to separate people. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the earth. and they left off to build the city. So the city was not built, and there's a strong indication tower was also not built. It was abandoned. So this is the story of Babylon. So how do we identify Babylon? Therefore, is the name of it called Babel or Babel, different ways people pronounce, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. This is a forced scatter. Sometimes God enforces his commands, his sovereign will. Even if man refuses, he will still force them to do that. That's his purpose. He wants whole earth to be replenished, and he wants independent sovereign nations, and with their own governments, and perhaps try their own form of government, and let them experiment. Since they don't want the true Shem, they wanted their own Shem. God let them experiment and reap the evil consequences of that until there is no hope, until there's no flesh be saved alive, because God has to come and cut short out of his sovereign will. Until such time, they keep on sowing and keep on reaping the evil fruits of having their own name, their own Shem. That brings us to the end of the presentation today. And we will open the room for your discussion, your insight into the subject. Yes, Alan, go ahead.
Yeah, earlier in your presentation, when you were going over the name, make ourselves a name, and you were making some additional information on that. It took me to the idea of a name above every name. We have a Shem above every Shem.
Exactly. Very, very good.
Which we see there in Philippians. That at the name of Jesus Christ, every knee should bow. So Nimrod had the idea that he would be number one, numero uno man in the empire, and that to him every knee would bow. The same way Nebuchadnezzar would have had the authority that everyone who came into his court, who would come before his throne, Nebuchadnezzar's throne, would bow to him. So this is just typical of humanity's quest for power and control. Nimrod exemplified that early on in the book of Genesis, but it's been the continuing theme with despots and dictators. Even today, you know, with the way some nations are ruled, they have they have the same thing. The leaders want to be that Shem. They want to be the name above all names. So it has happened that when he scattered them through confusion of language, that they carried with them into their various realms. Throughout the millennia of mankind, they all still want that same thing, the desire to be that Shem, until we finally come to Revelation 18.
Yes. Very, very good connection.
If you could go over with me, can you pull up Isaiah 56? Interesting verse here to show the honor being given to the saints. Isaiah 56 and verse 5. What a wonderful verse. Even unto them will I give in my house, within my walls, a place and a name. What do you think of that verse?
Very interesting.
And I'll give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. And that is, your name, his name will be on you, on your,
Yeah.
he will put on you, on your forehead, right?
Yeah.
So I like this verse because it shows that the place and a name, both things within his walls, exceptional and very, very empowering, encouraging verse. I'm going to stop at this point and see if someone else
Okay.
has additional comment.
Next week, we would do the city of Babylon. That's much complex. Yes, Rita. Let's go to Rita.
Yeah, what Alan was saying reminded me of the scripture that says we're going to be given new names. Isn't that in Revelation?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Another interesting thing, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but on TV, they'll advertise some deal that you can learn new languages, and they called it Babel.
Yeah.
Yeah. That every time I see that commercial, which I don't see very often anymore, but when I do, I think of the Tower of Babel. Anyway, yeah. I'm done.
There's one more place. They have placed the Tower of Babel. It's a replica in front of European Union, I believe to be in Brussels. They have words written in front of it. One nation, one union, many languages. Because European Union, EU, has several languages. They have the same difficulty. Yeah, most people would remember the languages, confusion of languages of the Tower of Babel. But that's the aftermath. That's what God did afterwards. But the first thing should come first. They wanted to have their own Shem. I wanted to highlight that. And they rebel against the commandment that God gave them. So they go in opposite direction. We see same patterns wherever Babylon is mentioned in Bible. We will go through Jeremiah 51 and parts of Isaiah. We have burden of Babylon. We have Nebuchadnezzar. We have all kinds of things. At some place, Judea, and sometimes Israel is also called Babylon because of what they are doing. So it's a concept. Babylon is a concept. It can be applied to any people depending on what signatures and what patterns they are exhibiting, or they're moved by those patterns. Any comments? Any other comments?
Yeah, there is one other thing that I've read in Zechariah. I think it's chapter 3, the land of Shinar.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're familiar with that verse.
Yeah, these are very important verses. Let's go there.
I didn't know if you were going to use that next time or not, so I was going to hold back.
I'm not intending to go there, Alan, because it's too much work. We
Yeah.
would be stuck in Babylon forever.
Yeah, okay.
But if you want to just show that, we will go there. This is the vision shown to Zechariah, right?
Yeah. I think you have to go back a couple more verses to maybe 5. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, that's the section I was referring to. There's a little bit of mystique tied to this
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the ways Zechariah writes his prophecies, there's so much symbolism in them, just like Revelation has. And it's not all apparently clear on the surface. It takes some analysis to get through this. But you see there, starting in 5, then the angel that talked with me went forth and said unto me, lift up now your eyes and see, what is this that goes forth? And I said back to him, what is it? And he said, this is an ephah, which is a measurement that goes forth. He said, moreover, this is their resemblance through all the earth. And behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead, and this is a woman that sits in the midst of the ephah. Interesting, isn't it? This
Mm-hmm.
woman is positioned in the middle of the ephah. What does an ephah usually represent? Measurement of something that sometimes a measurement of grain, could be of wheat,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's a dry measurement. It's not a hin. A hin is a wet measurement. But you see here, this ephah has a woman in it, which means she's the one who is in control of the substance of the material. She's in the middle of it.
Okay.
So in Revelation 18, when we say the kings of the earth and the merchants say, alas, alas, we will no longer have all these dainty things, all these marvelous and wonderful material possessions.
Mm-hmm.
In verse 8, and he said, this is wickedness. And he cast it into the midst of the ephah. And he cast the weight of lead on it like a lead cover on the mouth thereof. And I lifted up my eyes and looked, and behold, there came out 2 women, and the wind was in their wings, for they had the wings like the wings of a stork. The storks are unclean birds. They lifted up the ephah between the earth and the heaven. Interesting, isn't it? That they wanted to build a tower to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
And this wickedness that's in this ephah is lifted up between earth and heaven. Then
It's
said
like,
I to the angel,
sorry, it's like Tower of Babel.
yes. Then said I to the angel that talked with me, where do these women with wings of a stork bear the ephah? Where are they taking it? And he said to me, to build it a house in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established and set there on her own base. We could say on her own name, on her base of brick and of slime.
Oh, I see.
And I'm just, I haven't really studied this in depth, but because it's connected to the land of Shinar and it's filled with wickedness, I immediately gravitate to making this a connection to the end time system. of Babylon, because Shinar has become a symbolic word.
It is, no doubt about that.
And here
So-
the woman is in the ephah, inside the measurement vessel,
Yeah.
being carried. And why is there a lead cover? Lead is very heavy
Mhm.
for its volume.
Mhm.
So it's put on top of her to be carried there. So to me, it symbolizes you can't stop, she can't stop herself from going there. She can't escape the ephah. She's contained and restricted until she gets to her own base where it will be established. So there's a lot of symbolism in this, including the stork.
Is a millstone made up of lead?
No, millstones are not lead.
Okay.
Lead is a soft metal that has a low melting point, but it's very heavy for its volume. I think they're granite. Many times millstones would be a rock that doesn't easily grind to powder like a granite. But this section here anyways, it really piques a lot of interest concerning tonight's topic.
It has 3 women, actually, one inside the ephah. The other 2 women carry it, and they measure in Revelation 17:18. The measure that she used, measure it back to her twice, something like that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can spend some time and try to make sense out of this. I know we read through this when we visited you in Tampa some time back.
Okay, I just wanted to make mention of it so that it can, people are more aware of it maybe now. Because I don't think most of us spend a lot of time in minor prophets.
Yeah, we should check BibleStudy.org. They have some research on almost every topic. I will check it out and get back to you. Let's go to Terry. Yes, sir.
I was just going to mention, you talk about the lead cup. I'd heard the Romans use lead cups so that when they pour their wine in it, supposedly it made the wine sweeter. Now, this is just what I've kind of heard, not no real, I haven't looked into it factually, but that's kind of what I heard that the Romans did. They used lead cups that when they pour their wine in it, it's supposed to make it a little sweeter or something. That was my understanding. So thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you. I think we should also do a word study of lead, comb through scriptures and what it says about lead.
When you say lead, you mean like a
Yeah.
person being led, or the lead,
No.
the metal?
The metal lead.
Yeah. Like, when in all actuality, the Romans were poisoning themselves because we know,
Any volunteers are welcome. You can do that study on your own and then do your contribution to the room. I studied gold at one time, combed through scriptures, and silver.
can we volunteer someone like Alan?
Now,
It's a
just
forced
a minute.
volunteer. It's no longer volunteering then. What do you say,
Okay.
Al?
You know,
You
Terry,
are volunteered.
Terry, we used to get along pretty good. Now, what happened? I don't remember lead appearing very much throughout Scripture. It might appear a few times. But I know over the centuries, alchemists were intent on figuring out a way to turn lead into gold because they're very close in properties.
Hmm.
There was a desire to learn, figure out a chemical way to convert
Mhm.
lead to gold, because lead is far more plentiful in the earth.
In modern times, there is a conspiracy theory of lead poisoning as hoax. Now, if you have an older house which has a lead painting or lead inside it, you have to thoroughly remove it and get certified that there is no lead before you sell it. So somebody did research on the conspiracy theories. The lead, when it is present in paint, when you paint your walls and doors and ceilings, they're not able to see through them into your house. Even X-rays cannot penetrate. So they have a technology to see through your homes and what you're doing. So they have to get rid of lead from every home. So they created this hoax that lead is poisonous, extremely dangerous. So everybody got rid of the lead. Again, this is conspiracy theory. So you can't conclusively prove one way or other. So finally, they are able to completely see through the walls. That's a theory. Anybody studied Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon, the architecture, what the city like? I will be covering that next Tuesday.
I think Babylon's gates were still considered one of the seven wonders of the world. Or was it the seven hanging gardens of Babel?
Hanging Gardens of Babylon. That was
Yeah.
one of the seven wonders of ancient world.
Yeah.
But 14 miles each side, it's a square. It's a mammoth size, 350 feet high, 25 gates on each side.
You know, there is something to be said about Daniel and his friends in Babylon. As we see in Revelation, there are witnesses. This Daniel and his friends are witnesses in Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
His friends were witnesses in the fiery furnace.
Mm-hmm.
They witnessed, and it was seen there was one like unto the Son of Man with them in the flames. That's one witness. And then there's another witness when Daniel is able to interpret the dreams to Nebuchadnezzar and told Nebuchadnezzar that this great tree that gets cut down, that does not have to happen if you repent. So what was he doing there? He's telling Nebuchadnezzar to repent. That's witnessing. So that's another incident where he actually tells the king, this dream doesn't have to happen if you repent. What do you think about that as witnesses in Babylon?
Yeah.
Is it,
Good night, Hall. Hall is leaving. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry to disturb you.
Oh, no, I just thought it was kind of a precursor to the witnesses in Revelation 11. The presence of God's people in Babylon were witnesses.
That's a good approach. I like it. Because two witnesses, their dead bodies would lay in a city which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, but immediately next couple of verses you see the mega earthquake and the city was divided. You see the same thing for Mystery Babylon. That city was also divided after the earthquake. So Daniel and his friends are like two witnesses, right?
Yeah,
That's where you are going.
yes. And if you go back to Genesis 10 and you look at the line that came to Nimrod, it was the line of Japheth. In the first several verses of chapter 10 of Genesis, it's the line of Japheth. And so the line of Shem were without a doubt witnesses at the time of Nimrod.
You want to go
Because that is the line that comes forward, right, to the time of Abraham.
Yes, via Shem.
I just wanted to make the point that it's Japheth's line, which goes to Nimrod.
Is it Ham or I think it's Ham.
Maybe I read it.
Yeah.
Maybe I read it too fast.
Let's go to Genesis 10, Table of Nations. But before that, let's go to Terry.
Now I was gonna go back to where that earthquake that splits the city.
Yeah.
It runs east and west.
Okay, I wash.
If you read later on, I think in Revelation, it talks about rivers of living water that flow from the temple. One flows to the east and to the west. I wonder if that's the precursor to making that valley for the rivers of living water to flow in. Because it says when this city was split, it was split from east to west. And then if you read, and I'm bad about remembering exactly where the verses are, I'm sorry. Something about the rivers of living waters, one flowing east and one flowing west.
That's Mount of Olives. When Christ comes back and stands, the Mount of Olives will be split, and the way is made, and through which your people, thy people, shall escape.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And that earthquake is like the earthquake you had in the days of Uzziah, the king of Judah.
What are you doing?
Now my thoughts just went to if that was the earth, but maybe it was in preparation for the living waters to flow. But you're saying it's for uh, the people to escape.
Yeah, I think you're bringing many verses together,
Uh,
different places.
yeah.
Like in Revelation 11,
Doing this outdoor flux. Is this the one you're trying to get paid for now?
Here, Revelation 11, verse 13. At the same hour, there was a great earthquake,
Okay.
and the 10th part of the city fell. And in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to God of heaven. So this is second war passed, and the third war has to come. This is one place. You can search for earthquake. So here, Revelation 16, and there were voices, thunders, lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since the men were upon the earth. So mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city is a phrase for Babylon. And the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of nations fell. And great Babylon came into remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Okay.
వాటర్ టెంపుల్ లో వచ్చేది ఈజీపీఎల్ వస్తుంది ఈజీపీఎల్ 47 లో వస్తుంది.
తెలుసు. తను వెళ్తున్నాను. I'm just going through earthquake wherever it is. There was also great earthquake when the stone was rolled away, the tomb where Christ was buried. Yeah, this is the verse on Zechariah. And his feet shall stand on that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof towards the east and towards the west. And there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove towards north, and half of it towards south. And ye shall flee to the valley of the mountains, for the valley of the mountains shall reach unto Azal. Yeah, ye shall flee like ye fled from before the earthquake in the days of Uzziah, king of Judah. And the Lord my God shall come, and all the saints with thee. I think you referred also to this passage. That is Zechariah 14.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that earthquake after the people escape, because it says something about once New Jerusalem is established, something about the rivers of living water flowing to the east and to the west.
Yes, you see that in Ezekiel's temple, Ezekiel 40. And go to Ezekiel 47. Here he's still describing the temple. Afterwards, he brought me again unto the door of the house, and behold, waters issued out from under the threshold of the house eastward. For the forefront of the house stood towards the east, and the waters came down from the right side of the house, and at the south side of the altar. So it's coming from altar within the temple. And then brought he me out of the way of the gate northward, and led me about the way into the outer gate by the way that looked eastward, and behold, there ran out waters on the right side. So it starts as a small stream, and then it becomes a river as it progresses. It gets wider and wider and deeper, so that he cannot cross over. And then it segues into New Jerusalem. There's a tree of life. The leaves are for the medicine. In Revelation, it says the leaves are for healing of the nations. You're right. In New Jerusalem also, you see the waters flowing out. the living waters. And you see same thing in Garden of Eden. There are 4 rivers come out of Garden of Eden. You have Euphrates, and other is believed to be Nile. Other is Gation. There are 4 rivers. So we see this pattern, rivers coming out of the temple or a city or a place where God is. That's interesting. Alan, shall we go to Nimrod? So Cush
Oh, I
began-
just checked it. Yeah, it's Ham. You're right. It
It's
is
Ham.
Ham.
Most of the bad guys are from Ham.
So it seems to me that at the time of Nimrod, people are persuaded and are manipulated by a few intelligent, charismatic personalities.
Hmm.
So Babylon's the same way. They all come under the spell of Babylon at the end. A way of thinking,
Sure.
not a physical location, not a geographical place, but a way of thinking, a system of thinking, a philosophical perspective.
Yep.
And people are persuaded at the end of the close of the age of man by the system. And this is the same thing that Nimrod did on a simple humanistic level.
Mm-hmm.
He said, let's make us a name and build. It was probably he himself, it says, mighty hunter against God. He himself probably had a very strong personality and was probably accompanied by a group of other men who believed in the cause that he was setting forth. And the rest are persuaded. The rest are manipulated. The rest come along and they become loyal subjects, right?
Yeah.
And they give full cooperation because they are under the sway of it. Isn't that how it worked under Nimrod? They were building and cooperating and they were subjected to his authority. In the same framework we find at the end in Revelation 17.
Yeah, it begins small, very right, Alan. He has some people planted to raise him up as a leader. And all those few people say, let's say for discussion, a dozen people. He gets dozen people to really push him up as their leader and really speak up for him. He's such a great leader. He seeks welfare of us like that. And then another dozen gets added to that, looking at this first dozen. So now you have 2 dozens. Pretty soon it has 10 dozens. And then you have an empire in making or in building. Most churches are also started like that. There's some guys really push up a teacher or a preacher, and he would be pastor, our pastor. So you have that sheep kind of mentality. Sheep likes sheep. Pretty soon you have a mega church. It's all they buy that thinking, Babylon thinking. Now he becomes elite, and rest of them are reduced to slavery. You are right. Let's quickly go to Marlene and come back.
Yeah, very interesting comments. There's nothing new under the sun. I thought your comment about Eve being making a name for herself and taking this authority and being the first Babylon and that whole thing. And you look at how that progressed and the comments you were making about, the elite taking charge. And I was thinking about other churches of God worldwide, starting in that same concept is there. You make a name for yourself. You have people submit to you. You set the rules, and you hear these what we look at as silly things now. Back how long
Yeah.
girls were told how long to wear their skirts and how long the hair had to be, and wear makeup or don't wear makeup, and all these things. And it's like, yeah, then they say, oh, we wouldn't do that, but they do new things. It's like Babylon doesn't change, they just put on a new face. So lately it's been you got to wear a tie before you can say a prayer. It's the same type of thing. We're gonna have you, we will control you, and if you don't do it, then everybody's gonna see you are rebellious, and so it gets everybody to conform and submit. It is interesting. There's nothing new. Babylon doesn't go away. It just puts on a new face. And you can see that, of course, all through the culture, and it's going to go on till the end time. So anyway, very interesting. How you brought the name in and reaching to heaven and all that. Once again, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for that comment, Marlene. She made aprons. They made aprons. That doesn't work. So they are coming with their own solution, their own Shem, their own name. That's kind of interesting that you spotted it out. Yeah, it's a concept that can translate to any entity physically. You're right. Let's get back, Alan.
But sometimes we see things in public spaces or even in entertainment that resemble something that's actually true. Some years ago, there was a series called Star Trek, and there were many people that watched Star Trek. Very interesting, futuristic show.
Yeah.
Well, one of the episodes was called The Borg, B-O-R-G. And it was a kind of like an AI entity. And the Borg would say this: resistance is futile. Because every individual they want, every human being, everyone in deep space was to come under the authority of and convert into this entity, the Borg. And that's what they would say. That's what their words were. You must submit. Resistance is futile. Isn't that what will be also at the end time Babylon system, who says you cannot buy or sell. You cannot live your life. You cannot continue to have life if you resist. So resistance is futile is the message that will come from any despot, any dictatorial system of tyranny will tell you resistance is futile, so that you will have it in your mind not to resist. Can't we all just go along to get along?
Yeah, for common good, for the benefit of the bigger organization, bigger entity. Now you begin to lose your individual identity and everything individual. You lose your individuality. You become smaller and smaller. The organization, the empire gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
So you become insignificant.
And that's what the Borg did. You got amalgamated into the entity of the Borg. You were no longer yourself.
Yeah.
You lost your identification, and you became a part of the machine. So it was kind of an interesting concept that they put out there all those years ago that really did reflect some things that are really true.
Now, if you consider God's kingdom, how it would be, you are encouraged to be individual. You retain your character and you retain your person and personality. God's kingdom has a place for every personality, every individuality. Yet all of them are righteous. Some are called great and some are called small. True, there are differences, but you don't lose out. Just because you are small, you are not of lesser value. You are not inferior. It's very different if you compare Babylon with Trushan. It's different in several aspects. When the organization is started, the first batch of people who push up this leader, they're real dangerous guys. If you take up if you study a case by case, a case study of how these mega churches or big empires started, it always starts with small group, which are kind of deceitful people. They don't truly push up this leader. It's a part of a deal, agreement. They agree to push him up. But the people join after the first batch, they sincerely believe that this guy is really a great leader, charismatic. And all the subsequent batches that join, they buy into this fraud. And the original first batch probably get prominent positions once the organization grows. I don't know if I'm making sense. There are several case studies actually. We were talking about secret societies, right? That's where these guys would really come into picture. It happens for the business empires, political empires, and religious empires. And entertainment empires.
I think also the educational empires and the medical empires.
Yes, pharmaceuticals, or whatever.
Yeah, all these systems that are institutions, that are massive institutions. They all have their hierarchies.
Yeah.
That's the only way they can function. And you better get in lockstep with what they're doing, or you'll be done. It's even that way in small companies as well, even in a family business. If you're not in lockstep with the leadership, you're on the outs.
Yeah, mom and pop businesses would be crushed by these mega empires. Babylon is also alluded as a tree. Isn't it interesting? It grows so big, the birds of the air nest. And if you harmonize with the rest of the scriptures, especially Old Testament, the beasts of the earth would also take shelter under its shadow. These are two bad characters, birds of the air as well as beasts of the earth. They come and take shelter with this Babylon, this tree. So it is a tree, it's a woman, it's a city, it's a mountain. In Jeremiah 51, it becomes a mountain, oh proud mountain. And it also becomes a city with broad walls and gates. I will destroy your broad walls, O Babylon. That's what God comes and tells. And it also has a civilization. It also has its glory. Now, people who have done research into this, they go these corporations, the way corporations are designed and work, and this Babylon pattern, they go into mark of the beast. They did some years of work to identify the mark of the beast, image of the beast. I think image of the beast, they think this is the construct. Elite versus Goyim. Goyim means cattle. You are reduced to a level of animal. You are just cattle. You are disposable trash. You are not no longer a human being. With respect, with dignity, with value, with your own thinking and individuality, all those things are gone.
Yeah, you're reduced to a commodity.
Exactly.
And that's what happened in the ancient world when military campaigns were successful. They would take the prisoners and use them as a commodity. They would sell them to other nations as slave. The selling of slaves was very common. Even Joseph was sold by his brothers. So they were sold as laborers to do the difficult work. Even as third world countries have laborers today to work in the fields.
Yeah.
It's not much
Plantation
different.
workers.
Yeah. Their lives are not really valued other than what they can produce as a laborer. They aren't given human dignity as one who is created in the image and likeness of God. They are not thought of that way.
No, Babylon would not go in that direction.
No.
Now we are seeing more of Babylon, all this information. I hope in next 3 to 4 presentations, we will learn a little bit more and more incrementally about Babylon.
There's another comment I'd like to make about Genesis 11.
Okay.
Verse 8 says, "So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they ceased building the city." In verse 9 also. So there was a sudden stop. Everything came to a screeching halt, you could say, in modern lingo.
Yeah.
We got a screeching halt to the building of the city.
Yeah.
Verse 9, therefore, the name of this, it is called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. And from there, he did scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. So what happened here is a sudden stop to this activity, to the point where now we don't know whether they really did they build 1 or 2 stories high. It was their intention to build a tower to the heavens. But we see these images that men's artistic license shows us what they think it possibly looked like. But it doesn't really give us what the stage of progression or advancement of the building was.
True.
So it comes to a stop completely. And now that people are scattered abroad, the Lord scattered them abroad on the face of the earth. It's as if the project had never started, in that it's abandoned.
Abandoned, yes.
It's completely abandoned, and there's no point in trying to make it go.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when we see the stone that is cut without hands, and striking the image of Nebuchadnezzar on the feet. Well, Nebuchadnezzar is only the gold head. When it strikes the feet, it turns to chaff and blows away in the wind.
Yes.
And what happens when chaff blows away, it's like it was never there. So this image is completely turned to chaff and it's like it was never there. And here we see this project in verse 9 comes to a screeching halt, and they are scattered and they abandon the project. It's as if the project was almost as if there was never there. There's another verse about chaff. If you go over to Hosea 13. One through 4. It's about Ephraim and Israel becoming haughty and exalting themselves. But when he offended in Baal, he died. And now they sin more and more and have made the molten images of their silver and their idols. See a lot of that in Revelation, don't we? All that list of material goods, those are like idols. All the special things, including the oils and the odors and the dainties that are listed, are like idols. According to their own understanding, all of it, the work of the craftsman. Yeah, someone has to physically make those things. All the things that we set up as idols are made by men's hands. And say of them, let the men that sacrifice kiss the calves. So they've come to a sacrificial system of calf idolatry, like the golden calf. Therefore, they shall be as the morning cloud and as the early dew that passes away, and as the chaff that's driven away in the whirlwind out of the floor. That's the threshing floor, where chaff gets blown out of the barn door where you thresh. And it's like the smoke out of the chimney. So he's saying it's gone. The smoke and the chaff, that stuff is gone, and you can't retrieve it. There's no memory of it. It's permanent. It's kind of like permanently gone, right? There's a permanence to the removal of Babylon. When it's gone, it's permanently gone. Yet I am the Lord thy God from the land of Egypt. Thou shalt not know, you shall know no God but me. For there is no Savior beside me. So after it's all blown away, after Babylon is completely removed, in this case, in Hosea, it's the word Baal and the molten images. Afterwards, he says, I am your God that rescued you out of Egypt. There is not another Savior. There's only me. So the message then goes forth that says, I think in Micah, the law of the law shall go forth from Jerusalem, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem, or something like that. You remember that
From
millennial
Zion.
passage?
Yeah.
From Zion, Jerusalem. So verse 4 could be like an equivalent of that
Yeah.
in the millennium.
There's only one Shem. You can't have your own Shem. If you have your own Shem, in other words, unbelief. Unbelief is also root of Babylon, because it doesn't believe the true Shem, because it attempts to make a different Shem.
Yeah. There's a verse somewhere, must be in Isaiah, where it says, and they pulled away the shoulder. Remember that verse? It's an action that a rebellious child does when you try to give instruction.
Full shoulder, we can search the phrase.
Yeah, I'll turn on my camera just for a second. You know what it's like when you give instruction to a child and you talk to them and you put your hand up and they're pulling away the shoulder.
Not sure. It's not hitting those verses. And another interesting thing is, these are hard to reconcile. Babylon is burnt. Its flesh was eaten by the 10 kings. And then figuratively, he says, the angel comes and tells us, he takes a big millstone and throw it into the ocean. And it goes to the bottom of the ocean and wouldn't come up again. And then the angel says, thus shall it be for the Babylon. It would never be again. So it goes back into the sea. But if you see, most of these beasts, they come out of the sea. Except the special beast that comes out of bottomless pit. We will come back to that, like Revelation. Probably I'm going ahead of myself.
Tagore,
Yes, Rita.
I have a question. We were always told that woman refers to a church in the Bible. Is that true? And can you give me more insight on that?
Can you come again? I just missed that. A church again?
In church, we were always told that woman in the Bible refers to a church.
Yes.
And is that true, or can you give me more insight on that?
It is true. A woman is largely alluded as a church, but that's a very general statement. It could be true church or it could be false church. But the woman sometimes is assigned what is her role in a family. That's important. The woman can be a mother. A woman can be a daughter. And a woman can be bride, betrothal, or she can be a wife, or she can be a widow, or she is giving birth to a child, or the woman as a harlot. So you have various renderings of this just woman. So we have to address all these aspects of woman. And yes, that is true. Woman is a general illusion, prophetic illusion for church. That's true.
Thank you.
You're welcome.